It mentions Jesus the servant. Do you understand? So we call ourselves, we are called worshippers as well. So we are servants of Allah in the same way that Jesus is a servant of Allah. We are bondsmen.
But Allah means God.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's say God is one, Abrahamic. Oh my God, I'm being careful here. Let's say Abrahamic God is one. Do you believe Abrahamic God is one, or do you believe there are three gods?
No, we say like the first commandment that you have in the Shema that Jesus say is the greatest commandment. Hear ye, O Israel, your Lord, the God is one, and you should worship only Him. So we believe in one God, and we worship only one God. We don't say that He's a spirit, He's a man, or He's divisible. We say one.
One.
There is no Trinity.
One. There is no Trinity.
No
but
Trinity.
in Christianity there is Trinity.
I know. But why is there?
So what Islam is doing is by saying that Jesus is a prophet of Allah, rejecting our Trinity. So that's disrespectful to Christians.
You see, if the Jewish person came to you and said, you know what, Christianity is disrespecting us because you say Jesus is God, how much of an argument is that, do you think? What's your name? What's your name? What's your name?
My name is Anfi.
Alfie?
Anfi.
From Italy?
From Greece.
From Greece?
Yeah, Anfi.
Anfi?
Anfi.
Yeah.
When
do you understand that logic? Does it make sense to you?
Yeah,
so you may feel emotional about God being three in one, but Jesus said, my Father, my God. Your Father, your God. Meaning that your God is what?
My God.
What is your God? According to Jesus. Listen. Listen to what Jesus said. Don't hold me, but I have not ascended to my Lord, my God. Your Lord, your God. Who? The Father. Who is the Lord for you? Jesus, according to Jesus. I'll give you another example.
For me as a Christian.
Jesus said he was praying, and they said, how do we pray? He said, I'll teach you how to pray, how I pray. You know the Lord's Prayer? Jesus is saying, our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Not Jesus' name. So Jesus is the Father. So Jesus is teaching you how to pray. So Jesus is telling you how to pray. And that one God that Jesus prays to is the God that we pray to. But if you pray to a Trinity, that's not the God that Jesus told you to pray to. This is the paradox, this is the issue, this is the tension, this is the difficulty.
Are you rejecting Christianity?
Well, I'm not Christian, am I?
So you're saying
I'm Muslim.
Do Muslims reject Christianity? That is a real religion?
Of course.
Islam rejects Christianity, that is a real religion.
Okay, did Jesus say Christianity? Where was people first called Christians? Okay, look, I'm not here to deal with feelings, or emotions. I can say, oh, you believe that Jesus died, it hurts my feelings. No one cares, you know what I mean? No one cares. We have to be stronger. Okay, that's what Christianity says. Christianity says God died. We say that's abomination. Jews say that's crazy, but just what I'm saying, I can't stand here and tell you you must accommodate my feelings.
What
you know what I mean?
You've done that you've stolen verses of Christianity
what
and
verses
of Judaism to create Quran.
What verses?
You made up the story that Islam is...
Alfie, I think you're making things up now.
No,
which verses are you talking about?
The thing you said that Jesus say...
Which verses?
No, I don't... listen, as I told you, I'm not a fanatic Christian. I'm just
so why are you getting so upset and making things up? Yeah, but this is the thing. You're not making any sense. God died, okay.
Shouldn't say what Jesus said.
So,
Islam should say what Muhammad said. Christian, the apostles, and all these should say what Jesus said. And in Judaism, the Moses and the rest of them.
So Christianity shouldn't say what Moses said, because Moses. Listen. I'll let you speak. Listen. We have to have dialogue. So first you say that God Almighty died. Yeah. Now I told you, from a Muslim point of view, we can say, oh, our feelings are hurt. This is ludicrous. We can't say that. Same way, if we say that the prophets are Muslim, it shouldn't hurt your feeling. We give you explanation as to why. So it's not a good argument.
Yeah, but you take... Okay, let's say you don't...
No, cut all of this. What's your belief? Why do you believe that Jesus is free?
You
I gave you evidence, yeah? I gave you evidence, yeah? I gave you evidence where Jesus says, yeah? Sure. I gave you, because I want to stick to the point. I gave you evidence from the Bible where Jesus clearly subjugates himself to the Father. In almost all letters of Paul that he wrote, there's 13 letters, he says Jesus, the servant of God. This is what the discussion started. Why do Muslims call ourselves servant of God? Why does Paul call Jesus the servant of God? Why is it that's okay for him, but it's not okay for us?
Paul also says that Jesus is not a man. In one of the first letters of the New Testament written, Galatians,
Yeah.
it opens with Paul, an apostle, not from men nor through man, but through Jesus Christ. So if you're going to quote Paul, you have to
That's
quote
not what he said. What's your name?
That's not what he said.
No, I know exactly Galatians. What is your Ethan? Nice to meet. Okay, Hamza.
Lovely to meet you.
Okay, so for Paul, yeah, this is another argument actually against you, yeah. I know Galatians. So Galatians is one of the churches that he preached to, and the Galatians were turned into a gospel other than the gospel that Paul was giving him, right?
The text is right there.
I
It
know.
literally says Jesus Christ is not a man.
No, he doesn't
I
say
don't know why
Jesus.
you're doing backstory.
No, look, you can act silly, but Jesus was a man. He says in the Bible, Jesus was a man from Nazareth. Listen, Ethan. Jesus says, yeah, he was a man.
You have to read.
I know Paul. I know Galatians. Because I've read them. I understand. You're not listening. You're not here to listen. Ethan, you're not here to listen.
No, he's saying
It's a fake discussion. It's a fake discussion. No, I've had lots of discussions with Christians. I don't mind dialoguing, but it has to be real. But that was a bit weird. Anyway, in Galatians, Paul is writing to the church of Galatia because they are turning to a gospel other than the gospel that he told them to do. Now, in this, he says to them, he's telling them, I didn't get this from my own. In fact, I didn't even get this from the disciples. What he is saying, he didn't get this from men who are alive. Rather, he says this. No, it is. Any exegesis will tell you this. And I don't know where you get this exegesis, but this is not the plain reading. I will. I know, but I will. But listen, he says that he got this from the risen Jesus, from a risen Jesus. Because Paul says, look,
Just read it. It's right in front of you.
Look,
why are you shying away from it?
I'm going to read it, but why are you agitated for, Ethan? It's agitated. So look. Okay, Paul, an apostle who is not from men or through man, Paul, but through Jesus Christ,
Not through man,
meaning
through
the living. Paul believed that Jesus was thing. He said, in all of his letters that Jesus was who? The servant of the Father. Yes or no?
Not all of them.
Okay, almost all of them. So let's pull it up. So this, let me show you now.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you.
Yeah, you're not disagreeing. But this is the thing. You can't just pull up one verse and say this is what it means in the time.
Pull out these verses and say,
No,
Paul said
Ethan.
X, Y, Z.
I don't do that. When did I do? When did I do that? I just explained to you what Galatians was when it was written. Listen, look, you're not listening. You're not listening. You have to listen. We have to talk to each other. Ethan. Okay, no problem. This is not a genuine discussion. Okay, I'll speak to the crowd because if you don't want, it's up to you. So Galatians is one of the letters, one of the 13 letters that Paul wrote as the epistles. So Paul, he wrote, they say up to 13, but there's something about called pseudepigrapha. They assume maybe 6 or 7 of his letters aren't actually written by him, and they look at his writing, they look at the syntax, they look at the punctuation, they look at the amount of words in the sentence. You know, when you WhatsApp in someone, it automatically tells you what you're going to write. This is what scholars do with the writings of Paul, and they realize not all of these books of Paul, like Hebrews, definitely not written by Paul, because it doesn't come in the same style of Pauline writings. Paul usually starts his letters by saying, I'm writing to this church. And the church letter he's talking about specifically is the church of Galatia. Now, if he even disagrees, he can do. It says in the letters of Galatia that Paul is writing them because they are turning away from his message. They're going to a different gospel. And he there is justifying why he should be listened to, but though he didn't get his message from man or men, rather he believes he got his message from the risen Jesus. Now, if Ethan, you're listening, Paul says in his own words, and it also says by Luke in Acts when he's eulogizing him. He said, on the road to Damascus, Paul, who was known as Saul, he saw Jesus in a vision, not in the flesh.
Can I speak some
Well, not from emotion.
Can I also speak
Do you understand what you said? Where did he say that? Yeah, that you said. Where did he say that it was a risen Jesus?
No, I didn't say
You did
where.
that. You asked me. You asked
I'm
me.
sure he does say that.
No, yeah, he says that, and it says in Acts as well. It says in Galatians, the book you're reading.
Without knowing as much as you, without having read the Bible and Quran fully, only glimpses of
Who
them.
me? Or you?
Yeah,
You?
yeah.
You?
I'm not as much as you know.
Okay, so why are you arguing?
Okay, I'm not, but Islam started in 600 after Christ. The prophets are Muhammad, etc. The trilogy of Abrahamic religion is a trilogy of three equal religions. Abrahamic God is one, and three religions are the siblings of the same God with our own personalities. You saying, me saying like my brother, like I'm better than my brother. You saying that you're better than Christianity is like me saying I'm better than my brother. My brother, who have the same father, will never talk to me again, and that's why Islam is becoming unpopular to me because of the fanatism it creates. Another Muslim told me that Buddha can also be a prophet of Allah.
She told me.
As far as the Hindu gods are also prophets of Allah, because Allah is the only God. Let me conclude.
Yeah. Is it true?
Buddha is a prophet of Allah.
Yeah. You send proof of sermon.
Because Allah is the only God.
Yeah.
That's what I said in general.
She's emotional, isn't she? She's emotional.
Buddha must come.
No. Leave all of this moral indignation. Leave all of this moral indignation.
12 ancient gods of Greece are all prophets of Allah because Allah is the only real God.
This is absolute. Have you finished?
Are all prophets of
Have you finished?
Allah because Allah.
This is very ethical. You stood here talking about moral indignation, that Muslims shouldn't be like this, they're meanies and all of this. And now you're just making things up. I'll tell you something. Let me tell you something. I'll tell you about Greece. Because you're from Greece. I'll tell you something about Greece, yeah? I'll tell you about Greece. Now you mentioned the 12 gods of Greece. Now these gods of Greece was actually erected in Judea. It was known as Capitolian Alia. You didn't know that. It was Jupiter, Juno, Minerva. And this was the first Trinity established by the Emperor Hadrian in the doors of Judea. After that, Judaism became illegal. And that's when Gentile Christianity flourished. And that's where you had the idea, and that's where you had the idea. No. So it's not our gods, it's your gods. Do you understand?
So
That you see, we have nothing to do with these 12 gods of Rome. This is your gods. Yeah, good.
So you have
You know what Aristotle says? He's another one of your. You know Aristotle. He said, huh?
I love Aristotle.
Yeah, Aristotle said, that the, 1 is in 3 and 3 is in 1. Thus we should worship God in 3. What kind of demented logic is that? No, that's not Christian. This was this is philosophy. Philosophy 1. There is Trinity. This is what they believe in.
We're a philosophical religion.
Yeah?
That's a big difference. We're a philosophical.
Yeah. But not all of you. Yeah.
I find that a lot of the disagreements that come between Muslims and Christians is...
Let's have goodwill discussion.
I promise I am nice.
I know, but you've been so nervous with me. Yeah, but I want to be nice too.
Lent, I'm fasting.
Oh, yeah, good one. We start fresh, new page.
I do find that a lot of the issues that come between Christians and Muslims on understanding is we do like philosophy.
Yeah.
Our book wasn't written directly by God. It was written by the hands of man, inspired by God. So we don't have to believe the Bible has everything in it.
Yeah, of course.
We like philosophy because the Bible doesn't have every single word that we need written in it.
Of course.
Philosophy is a helpful way to draw...
Navigating or something, yeah? Okay.
As a Catholic, I believe that the philosophy that can come from the Catholic Church can be inerrant.
The philosophy from the... Okay, so this is interesting. So how oh my gosh, you lot are doing my head in today, isn't it? But
I'm sorry.
but it's alright. It's all love. So Paul says it many times, that you should stay away from vain speech and philosophy. And he says it many times. For example, in 1 Corinthians he says in First Corinthians, verse 22, Jews demand signs, but the Greeks look for wisdom. And he's actually telling them off because they're looking for wisdom. They're looking for this philosophy. In another place, he says that he condemns, I'm trying to find the verse, he openly condemns philosophy. Let me see if I could find the verse.
What he's doing is philosophy is the problem.
Yeah.
As an apostle, he had the power of doing good philosophy. So he was condemning people that were making their own fallible proclamation.
Vain philosophy. So yeah, some of the exegetes, they say...
Which is why we would say it's important that the Catholic Church has a power of infallibility to make the correct philosophical proclamation.
Ethan, you know I know you're a nice guy. I've got a good eye. I can see when a person is a nice guy. But I can see when like some people like you know, it's cameras, you get sometimes edgy. Yeah, I know. But anyway, we're starting again. So Paul, yeah. So some Christians believe that you should not use philosophy because of Paul. But I understand there's some Christians that look at the Bible through philosophical lens. But this is the problem that we have as Muslims, that your approach is what causes you to get to things like the deification of Jesus and the Trinity. Now, it's an approach.
Philosophy is what causes you to have massive problems.
Yeah, like
I would say it's... Yeah, if people were to make philosophical proclamations and they didn't have an infallible magisterium behind them like the Catholic Church, it's a problem. But I would also say if you didn't have any philosophical theory at all, Jesus also meet with issues.
But where would you say like the church? How do you justify that the church is infallible?
Because have I forgotten this? Matthew
No, just off the
18
topic.
to 19. You are Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the powers of death shall not prevail against it. The Catholic Church holds that to be a confirmation of oral tradition handed down by the apostles. So the apostles affirmed that as oral tradition, and then it was also written down in the scripture.
So Peter is the pillar of Peter, the first pope. Yeah. He's in Rome. And he's the pillar of the church. How many pillars of the...
He's the rock of the church.
Yeah, and he's also 1/3 of the pillar of the church.
There are lesser segregated branches of the church.
So
the churches, if you look through a lot of the epistles, they are, the church in Rome making instruction to churches elsewhere in the world who then defer onto the church in Rome.
So what we believe...
The Old Testament shows that the churches elsewhere in the world were...
Do you think that they're the earliest church, the Roman church? Are they the earliest church?
I think wherever St. Peter was sat, probably yes.
Okay, so in the Council of Jerusalem, which happened about the year 50 AD.
I think it's a problem saying Rome specifically because I'm sure the see has moved around. But we call it the see.
The see, I know, yeah. Okay, but ultimately... Oh, you're gone? Okay, Habibi. Okay, I'm going to be in Leicester, maybe. Yeah, so I'm going to go break iftar and then come Leicester, yeah? Nice seeing you. Iftar, innit? So basically, I'll make it really cool. When Jesus came, he taught about monotheism. He taught his disciples. The disciples set up the first church. This church was in Jerusalem. Later, biblical writers and church fathers say that the first church was established in Jerusalem. It's known as the Jerusalem Church. It's also known as the Way. It's also known as the Jesseans. And Epiphanes of Salamis, the heresiologist, he writes this much later. He says that they only worship one God. And Epiphanes, through the lens of a Trinitarian, he's saying that he's saying that the companions of Jesus, they're blasphemous. He's saying that this is a heresy. But here I'm saying, but Jesus taught these, he handpicked these persons by his own, as you say, divine hand, but yet they get the message wrong. But we're supposed to believe, so they set up the first church. Sorry, I'm speaking so fast, I'm going to leave now, yeah? They set up the first church. The first 15 churches, yeah, as the church fathers say, were of the circumcision. You know what that means? That means all 15 of them were circumcised. Now what happened?
The
Hebrew law, Hebrew language. That's why James...
There's an argument between churches about whether circumcision is necessary.
Excellent. So because men of James keep going to Paul, the uncircumcised group, he calls them dogs as well. And James, he goes to Paul in the end and he says, do you see all of these men, thousands of zealous people, Jews hungry for the law or zealous for the law? He said there were thousands of them, meaning that they believed in Christ. The earliest followers, they were in Judea and they believed. And Jesus said, "Go ye not into the Gentiles." This is known as the lesser, the limited, the lesser. Well, he sends them out. I forget the word comes off. And he said, "Don't go ye not into the Gentile. I've only come from the lost sheep of Israel. Salvation is given to the Jews." He said many times, "I've only sent to these Jews." He doesn't say that he's been sent to the Gentiles. The message of Gentiles came later with Paul, but we get onto that. So the early church was in Jerusalem. What happened is the fire was...
It wasn't just Paul. There was the Great Commission. Go forth and make believers.
Limited commission. This is it. But this comes later in the ending of Mark, yeah? No. He gave it, but it doesn't mean anything. Yeah. But this comes first when? Yeah, sure. Where does the Great Commission come? Think about it. Where does it come? The ending of? The ending of Mark. And the ending of Mark is what? It's a fake ending.
Well, church fathers would disagree with you.
No.
Scholars disagree.
No.
Church fathers
No.
disagree.
Everyone knows that this longer ending, shorter ending, both are not fake. It finishes at chapter 16, verse 9.
You realise I believe in the Bible because I believe in the church.
Yeah, I can handle it. But I'm just talking from, I'm just playing from a critical point of view. There's a limited commission where Jesus says he's clearly only sent to the Jews. Yeah, he calls a woman a dog. He says the bread should not of the children. Hear me. He said the bread of the children should not be given to the dogs, meaning the Canaanite woman. So I'm not trying to say.
But then what happens?
No, but the point. Yeah. But the point I'm trying to say is a limited.
What does he do after?
I get it. But because he said because of your faith. Yeah, I agree. But scholars point out that they're here. Yeah. I'm trying to do it so quickly, Ethan, yeah? So scholars point out there's something called a limited commission. There's a greater commission, meaning this commission is greater than the limited commission. But the limited commission was Jesus saying to the Jews, stay in Judea. He said this, stay in Judea. So they didn't go out. In fact, we know that the companions did not go out, yeah? Jesus' disciples did not go out to rest of Rome and on this, like the church says to you. How do we know this? Because in Acts it says, and Acts is written many years after the apostles. Acts is written many years after. Yeah, they say Acts is written in maybe the year 90. Yeah, but they say it's written in the year 90. It says. No, but I'm not digging. I'm not saying dig. I'm just not dig. The point I'm trying to say, yeah, Acts many years later is saying that the apostles of Jesus are living where? In Judea. James is the one that has the Council of Nicaea in the year 50. Jesus was said to have died 20 years before that. If Jesus gave the Greater Commission, why did the companions not go out? Why? No, this is the thing. So St. Paul, yeah.
St. Paul had a different kind
Paul says to me, this is what I'm saying. There's no evidence really of this, and I could go into this. This is another topic, but I have to go now, yeah. But Paul, yeah, St. Paul says, I have been sent to the Gentiles, while you have been sent in.
Agree with St. Paul.
Good. Where's Peter? Paul believes he's been sent to the Gentiles. He believes the other disciples are sent to the Jews. Yeah, because it shows that Peter isn't sent to the Gentiles. Do you understand? Yeah, I'm gonna go think. Ethan, it was nice to speak to you. Sorry about that cut short thing. Yeah, I apologize so much. I have to go Ilford real quickly.
Have a good day.
Baby, nice speaking to you.
You know what? We want to